The star field stretched endlessly outside the wide observation windows of the interstellar research vessel Aurora. Its white hull gleamed faintly under the light of distant suns. Commander Lyra stood silently, her multi-limbed silhouette outlined against the glowing cosmos. For centuries, her people had studied life across hundreds of star systems. She had seen species that could survive in the vacuum of space, creatures with intelligence far surpassing her own in certain fields, and civilizations that communicated through colors, sounds, or even telepathy. Yet humans were something else. The human envoy had arrived only hours ago, escorted through the ship by robotic attendants. His name was Marcus, a tall, lean figure with brown eyes that seemed to hold both curiosity and caution at once. Lyra had observed him carefully as he walked through the corridors of the vessel. He moved with a strange kind of confidence, but it was subtle, not the aggressive kind she had seen in some dominant species. Humans, she reminded herself, were fragile in appearance. No scales, shells, or protective layers, just soft skin, bones, and an unremarkable frame. And yet, something about him set her instincts on edge. Marcus entered the observation deck quietly, his hands folded behind his back. He looked around, not with awe but with interest, taking note of the soft hum of the ship's engines and the way the stars shifted beyond the glass. Lyra approached him, her multiple eyes reflecting the starlight. She had prepared dozens of questions, simulations, and mental exercises for humans, but a single thought lingered in her mind. How did they think? What drove them? She spoke first, her voice calm but firm. "Human, you have traveled far to meet us. Tell me, what drives you?" Marcus tilted his head, considering her words. His lips curved into a faint smile, and he replied simply, "We try to live, we try to understand, and we try to make things better for ourselves and others." Lyra's multiple eyes widened slightly. The answer was strange, too simple. It lacked the complexity she expected from a species capable of interstellar travel. Yet there was something in the way he said it, in the calm certainty behind the words, that unsettled her. It was not a boast, not a threat, but it carried a quiet power she could not measure with any instrument she possessed. "Explain further," she prompted. Marcus's expression remained calm. "We don't have immortality. We don't have invincibility. Every species you study has some natural strength or defense that gives them an edge. We have nothing of the sort, but we adapt. We learn. We cooperate. And when we face danger, we find a way forward." Lyra noted the subtle tone in his voice, a mixture of caution and unshakable certainty. Humans were fragile, yet somehow unbroken. This concept was difficult for her species to understand. Many alien civilizations relied on predictability, on precise patterns of thought. Humans, it seemed, were unpredictable in a way that could not be measured or calculated. She decided to observe him further. The human was curious, too, asking questions about the ship, about the species she had studied, and even about the stars themselves. He seemed genuinely interested in the galaxy, yet there was a hint of amusement in his tone, as if he found the aliens' precision both impressive and amusingly rigid. The ship's AI signaled that it was time for the initial assessment simulations. Lyra led Marcus into a chamber where holographic scenarios could be projected. These simulations were meant to test a species' intelligence, strategy, and ethical decision-making. For most aliens, these tests were straightforward. For humans, Lyra suspected, they would be something else entirely. The first scenario involved a stranded colony on a dying planet. Aliens were forced to make choices based on survival probability, resource management, and calculated risk. Marcus observed quietly as the holograms shifted and simulated disasters unfolded. When prompted to act, he made choices that were unusual. Instead of strictly following the safest paths, he took risks that seemed reckless, sending rescue drones into unstable areas and guiding colonists through dangerous zones. Lyra watched carefully, her sensors recording his every move. The results baffled her. Where a highly intelligent alien might calculate probability and avoid risk at all costs, Marcus seemed to understand something deeper, an instinct for survival that was flexible and adaptable. He anticipated outcomes that no calculation had predicted, balancing courage with careful observation. After the simulation, Lyra reviewed the data. Her instruments could measure speed, accuracy, and pattern recognition, but Marcus's actions did not fit any known pattern. He had solved the scenario in a way that no alien mind had before. Lyra felt a cold chill. If humans could act unpredictably yet effectively in simple simulations, what might they be capable of in the real galaxy? Hours passed as she tested him further. Each scenario, no matter how complex or carefully constructed, revealed a combination of human creativity, intuition, and cooperation. Even when she introduced moral dilemmas designed to confuse or trap him, Marcus navigated them with calm clarity. Lyra began to understand that humans did not follow strict logic or pattern. They created new patterns as needed. They thrived in uncertainty. During a break, Marcus walked to the observation deck again, looking out at the stars. Lyra followed. She wondered what it was like to face a galaxy so vast and dangerous, yet still remain undeterred. Humans had faced countless challenges on their home planet, natural disasters, predators, conflicts, and yet they persisted. Marcus's quiet presence reminded her of something she could not name, a strength that had no clear origin, no obvious weapon or shield. "You seem different from other species," Lyra said cautiously. "You do not fear failure in the way we expect. You take risks. You persist when others would falter. Why?" Marcus smiled faintly. "Because we must. We do not survive by being the strongest or the fastest. We survive by not giving up. We survive by thinking, by helping each other, and by adapting. That's what drives us." Lyra felt an unease settle in her chest. His words were simple, yet terrifying. Not because he threatened her, but because the truth behind them was undeniable. Humans were fragile, but their strength lay in a place she could not measure. They could endure hardships that would destroy other species, and they could find solutions in situations that seemed hopeless. If this one human was any indication, the species as a whole was far more formidable than she had imagined. The AI alerted them to a new discovery, a planet in a neighboring system, rich in resources and potentially habitable. The ship's sensors indicated it was largely unexplored. Lyra was tasked with assessing the planet's viability, and Marcus requested to accompany her. She agreed, curious to see how he would interact with a completely new environment. As they approached the planet, Lyra briefed him on the conditions. The atmosphere was breathable for humans, but it was filled with unpredictable weather patterns. The surface was covered in thick forests and deep canyons. Alien species had avoided it due to the difficulty of navigation. Marcus listened carefully, his eyes reflecting the green and blue hues of the planet below. "It looks beautiful," he said simply. "And dangerous. Exactly the kind of place humans like." Lyra arched an eyebrow. "Exactly the kind of place you would choose to explore?" He shrugged. "We like challenges. We learn from them." They landed near a forested canyon, and the two stepped out onto the alien soil. Marcus moved confidently, observing the flora and fauna, taking notes and asking questions. Lyra noticed that he seemed to understand the ecosystem intuitively, predicting where rivers would flow, how the winds would shift, and even which plants were safe to touch. It was an instinct she had never seen in other species, an ability to read nature, to adapt to it instantly. Hours passed as they explored. Marcus climbed rocky ledges that would have taken other humans hours longer, used natural formations to find safe paths, and discovered hidden water sources. Lyra watched, both impressed and disturbed. She had always thought humans were fragile, bound by their soft bodies and limited endurance. But here was proof that their minds compensated for their weaknesses in ways she could not fully understand. As night fell, the sky of the planet lit up with a brilliant display of stars and auroras. They set up a temporary camp, and Lyra found herself asking the question again, quietly, almost to herself. "What drives you?" Marcus looked up at the glowing sky. "Hope," he said simply. "Hope that we can make things better, that we can survive, that we can leave something behind that matters." Lyra shivered, though not from cold. His answer was short, yet it carried a power she could not quantify. It was terrifying, not because it threatened her, but because it revealed a truth she could not ignore. Humans were unpredictable, resilient, and unyielding. They were not the strongest physically, nor the fastest, but they possessed a force that no alien could calculate or control. As they returned to the ship, Lyra felt a new respect for the human beside her. She also felt fear. The galaxy had known many powerful species, but she suspected that humans were something different. If the truth of Marcus's words spread, civilizations might underestimate humans at their own peril. That night, as the Aurora sailed through the dark expanse of space, Lyra stared at the stars, thinking of the one question she had asked, and the answer that had shaken her more than any weapon, any danger, or any predator she had ever encountered. Humans survived not because they were invincible, but because they refused to be broken. And in that refusal, Lyra glimpsed a power the galaxy had never truly faced. The simulation chamber hummed softly, lights shifting to create an endless array of holographic scenarios. Lyra guided Marcus into the center of the room. The walls, once solid and white, now glowed with images of alien cities, hazardous terrains, and unpredictable crises. Each scenario was designed to push species to their limits, measuring their logic, strategy, and decision-making. To Lyra, it was a routine exercise. To Marcus, it was another opportunity to show the human way of thinking. Lyra initiated the first scenario. A city faced a massive flood. Rivers of water surged through streets filled with people. Drones hovered above, their sensors warning of the approaching danger. Most species she had studied would begin by evacuating populations based on probability, predicting who could be saved and who could not. Marcus, however, moved differently. He paused, observing the holograms. Then he tapped into the control panel, sending drones not to the most obvious safe zones, but to places where citizens had the highest chance of survival if assisted carefully. He organized small groups, assigning tasks, and even suggested using abandoned vehicles as makeshift rafts. The simulation's programming anticipated hesitation and failure from the human, but Marcus adapted continuously, altering his plan as new variables appeared. Lyra's sensors recorded the results. The humans saved far more holographic citizens than predicted, doing so in ways that no algorithm had prepared for. She felt her instincts flare. He had not followed the expected patterns. Instead, he created solutions in real time, blending intuition, empathy, and foresight. The next simulation was a moral test. A group of explorers faced a life-or-death dilemma on a distant planet. Some members were critically injured while resources were limited. The AI presented multiple options, each with calculated outcomes. Other species often chose the option that maximized survival rates. Marcus considered the choices and then selected a solution that seemed irrational at first. He split the supplies to help all, taking the greatest personal risk himself. Lyra's internal sensors indicated stress readings she had never seen before. This human's mind did not simply calculate, it weighed factors she could barely define: compassion, courage, unpredictability. The simulation's AI could not compute the consequences of such an emotional strategy, and yet Marcus succeeded. All explorers survived, though in ways the program had never anticipated. By mid-cycle, Lyra felt an unease she could not explain. Marcus's actions were effective, yet they were chaotic. Her people had always prized predictability. They relied on algorithms, probabilities, and structured planning. Humans, it seemed, ignored these constraints and found new ways forward, improvising in ways that no other species dared. She began to wonder, if this was only a single human, what could an entire species achieve when faced with real danger? The third simulation was the most complex yet. A massive interstellar cargo ship had been stranded in a nebula with volatile radiation storms. Crew members faced impossible odds, and alien teams had consistently failed to rescue them without significant loss. Marcus analyzed the situation quietly, his brow furrowed slightly. Then, with calm precision, he began issuing commands. He directed drones to shield vulnerable areas, instructed crew members to use previously overlooked maintenance tunnels, and even suggested sacrifices to stabilize the ship's engines. To Lyra, it looked reckless. He had divided resources in ways that seemed to reduce the probability of success, yet he moved forward, undeterred. The simulation concluded. Marcus had not only stabilized the ship, but had saved every crew member and even restored a significant portion of cargo. Lyra examined the data with disbelief. He had defied every calculated risk matrix. Where her species would have paused, retreated, or abandoned hope, Marcus had acted creatively, thinking several steps ahead, predicting outcomes the AI could not. During a break, Lyra approached him. "Human, your methods are unusual. You risk more than necessary. You act unpredictably." "Why?" Marcus shrugged. "Sometimes the safest path isn't the one that saves the most. Sometimes the right thing to do requires risk. We learn from what we survive, not from what we avoid." Lyra paused. His words were simple, but their meaning was vast. His species measured survival differently than her own. It was not about minimizing loss. It was about maximizing growth, adaptation, and opportunity. Humans did not merely endure. They transformed every challenge into a chance to advance. The next series of simulations tested strategic thinking in group dynamics. Lyra introduced multiple human and alien teams to cooperate under limited resources. The aliens, conditioned to strict logic and hierarchy, struggled. They hesitated, debated endlessly, and often chose paths that seemed safe but were inefficient. Marcus, however, thrived. He coordinated his team with flexibility, adjusting orders in real time, encouraging individual initiative while maintaining cohesion. Unlike other species, humans could improvise without fracturing teamwork. They used intuition, experience, and emotion as tools, not hindrances. Lyra noted a strange pattern. Humans created solutions where none existed, often in ways that seemed illogical but produced results. At one point, the simulation introduced a moral conflict. A crucial energy source was buried beneath a city at risk of collapse. Saving it could preserve technology for future generations, but would endanger lives in the present. Marcus hesitated, then spoke firmly. "We value life above all. We find another way." He quickly devised a solution using materials from nearby ruins, stabilizing the city and securing part of the energy source. Lyra could not deny it. Humans acted with foresight and adaptability, yet their priorities were different from other species. They were willing to take personal risks for the greater good, combining creativity, intuition, and moral judgment in a way she had never witnessed. After hours of testing, Lyra decided to initiate a final simulation, one that combined all previous challenges. A complex alien ecosystem was collapsing. Resources were limited, creatures were aggressive, and the terrain was unstable. The simulation required strategic planning, moral judgment, and rapid adaptation. Marcus stepped forward. He observed quietly, analyzing each variable, yet his approach was entirely human. He moved between leadership and collaboration, intuition and observation, planning and improvisation. Where alien participants froze or relied solely on calculations, he acted decisively, adjusting strategies with remarkable speed. Hours passed, the holograms changing continuously. Marcus moved calmly, speaking with confidence and encouraging creativity in his team. Every obstacle was met not with panic or rigid protocol, but with thought, courage, and determination. Finally, the simulation concluded. Marcus had succeeded where all others had failed, saving lives, resources, and stabilizing the ecosystem. Lyra's sensors recorded results that no algorithm could predict. She felt a chill, a mixture of awe and fear. The human had demonstrated not just intelligence, but a kind of strategic resilience that no other species possessed. She asked quietly, "How can you remain so calm in situations designed to overwhelm you?" Marcus looked at her, his gaze steady. "We don't always know the outcome, but we act anyway. We learn from what happens, and we keep moving forward." Lyra's mind raced. The simplicity of his answer hid a terrifying truth. Humans did not merely survive, they thrived on uncertainty. They turned chaos into opportunity, danger into growth. Unlike her people, who measured and calculated, humans acted with a mixture of instinct, morality, and creativity that no simulation could fully anticipate. Later, alone on the observation deck, Lyra stared at the distant stars. She reviewed every step Marcus had taken during the simulations. Every decision, every risk, every adaptation spoke of a species that refused to be constrained by limitations. Their minds were unpredictable, their actions flexible, and their resolve unbreakable. She felt a strange mix of respect and fear. Humans were fragile in form, but in spirit, they were formidable. Lyra understood now why her superiors had requested a human envoy. They were not just another species to study. They were a force to reckon with. As the Aurora prepared to leave the system, Lyra turned to Marcus. "You have shown abilities far beyond what we expected. Your species, it is unlike any other." Marcus smiled faintly. "We're not perfect. We make mistakes, but we keep trying. That's how we survive." Lyra nodded slowly. She had learned something vital. Humans survived not because they were invincible, but because they refused to be constrained by fear or expectation. They acted in ways that defied calculation, yet their results were undeniable. That night, as the ship sailed silently through the darkness of space, Lyra remained awake. She replayed every moment of the simulations in her mind. She thought of Marcus's calm eyes, his steady voice, and his simple, terrifying words. Humans were unpredictable. Humans were resilient. Humans were dangerous, not because they sought conquest, but because they refused to be broken. She realized the truth she could not ignore. The galaxy had seen many powerful species, but none like this. Humans were not merely survivors, they were innovators, strategists, and pioneers in ways that no alien race could predict. And in their unpredictability lay a power that could reshape the balance of civilizations. Lyra's sensors recorded the humans' final actions during the simulations, but no data could capture the essence of what she had witnessed. Marcus's mind operated on a level that defied pattern recognition. His decisions were shaped by logic, intuition, and moral choice, all woven together seamlessly. She felt a shiver down her spine, a mixture of awe and apprehension. As the first stars of a new system appeared on the observation deck, Lyra made a quiet vow. She would study humans carefully, respect them, and understand them, but she would never underestimate them. The answer to the question she had asked, what drives humans, was clear. It was something that no alien could replicate, no simulation could predict, and no weapon could destroy. Humans endured, adapted, and thrived because they refused to surrender to fear or limitation. And in that refusal lay a power that terrified her more than any threat she had faced. The planet's surface stretched beneath them in vast, untamed wilderness. Thick forests interwove with jagged mountains, and rivers cut through the land like silver threads. The air shimmered with unfamiliar energy, filled with scents that tickled the human senses and confused alien detectors. Lyra and Marcus stepped carefully over the alien soil, scanning the terrain. Lyra could sense the subtle changes in Marcus. He was excited, yet calm. To humans, danger was a challenge, not a barrier. She noted how his eyes roamed constantly, noting every shadow, every movement in the foliage, every pattern in the river flow. Other species would have been cautious, hesitant at every step. Marcus was cautious too, but in a way that seemed natural, like part of a rhythm she could not feel. "Careful," Lyra said, her voice carrying a note of warning. "The flora here releases toxins when disturbed. Even slight contact can be fatal." Marcus nodded. "I see. But we'll find a safe path. There's always a safe path if we keep looking." Lyra's sensors recorded his scanning movements and pattern recognition. He wasn't simply observing, he was adapting to the planet itself, reading its ecosystem with an instinctive understanding. His species had survived on a fragile planet, yet humans had developed the skill to survive in almost any condition. Here, on a completely alien world, he displayed that same skill. They approached a canyon where the river narrowed, its waters rushing violently over jagged rocks. On the far side, a cluster of strange, luminescent plants grew, seeming to shimmer with life energy. These plants were unknown to any species catalogued by Lyra, and their potential uses were a mystery. Some could be medicinal, others dangerous if handled incorrectly. Marcus crouched near the water, observing the current. He studied the rocks, the flow, and the placement of the plants. Then he carefully moved a series of stones to create a makeshift bridge. Lyra watched, astonished. His solution was simple, elegant, and effective. He had adapted immediately to a hazard that would have taken other species hours, even days, to navigate safely. "You humans," Lyra said softly, "you always find ways to survive." Marcus smiled faintly. "We try. It's what we do." As they continued through the forest, Lyra noticed strange tracks along the ground. The footprints suggested large creatures had passed recently, creatures that might be predators. Lyra's instincts urged caution, yet Marcus moved forward without fear, noting the patterns and predicting the likely paths the creatures had taken. Hours passed. The sun of the alien system dipped low, casting long shadows across the forest. The sounds of unknown animals echoed through the trees. Lyra, despite her multi-limbed agility and advanced sensors, felt a sense of unease she had never felt before. Humans, however, seemed to thrive in this tension. Marcus moved quietly, but his mind raced, analyzing every variable, adjusting his plans, always thinking several steps ahead. By evening, they reached a plateau overlooking a valley. From there, Lyra could see the scope of the wilderness below, rivers winding through forests, cliffs rising sharply, and pockets of glowing plants scattered like stars across the land. Marcus approached the edge and gazed silently. "It's beautiful," he said simply, "and dangerous. Perfect for learning, perfect for surviving." Lyra studied him. His calm acknowledgement of danger, paired with curiosity and admiration, was unnerving. She had seen aliens respond to such worlds with fear or calculation, but humans seemed to embrace it. Danger to them was not a threat. It was a measure of opportunity. During their exploration, they encountered a series of natural obstacles. A large chasm blocked their path, the only way across a fallen log spanning its width. Lyra's instincts warned her of the risk. The log was unstable, the fall fatal. Marcus studied it for moments, then adjusted the balance of his weight, moving carefully but confidently. He crossed first, testing the stability, then gestured for Lyra to follow. She hesitated, calculating probabilities and possible outcomes. Marcus's calm assurance forced her to reconsider. She followed, moving carefully but relying on his instinctive judgment. Together, they crossed safely. Further into the valley, they discovered remnants of what appeared to be a past settlement, alien in origin, but long abandoned. Ruins of buildings, strange tools, and energy cores half buried in the soil hinted at a civilization that had once thrived here. Lyra scanned the area with her instruments, measuring energy signatures and structural integrity. Marcus moved among the ruins, touching objects, examining patterns, and piecing together their purpose with remarkable speed. "This species," Marcus said quietly, "they were smart, but they didn't survive. Maybe they couldn't adapt fast enough." Lyra's sensors recorded every word. He spoke calmly, almost gently, yet there was a subtle warning in his tone. Humans survived because they adapted. Other species might fail, not because they were weak, but because they could not think creatively when the rules changed. As night fell, they made camp near the ruins. Marcus built a small fire, using materials from the forest. Lyra observed him, fascinated. He used techniques that had been passed down for generations, practical knowledge combined with careful observation. In this alien environment, he adapted instantly, applying ancient human skills in ways that ensured survival. Lyra asked the question again, softly, almost to herself. "What drives you, Marcus? Why do you push forward when danger is everywhere?" Marcus stared into the fire, watching the flames dance. "We survive because we must, not just for ourselves, but for others. Every generation learns from the previous one. Every challenge teaches us something new. And when we face danger, we don't give up. We adapt. We endure. We keep going." Lyra felt a shiver she could not explain. Humans were fragile, yet their strength was in their mind, their spirit, and their refusal to surrender. Marcus's words were simple, but they revealed a truth she had never encountered in any other species. Humans were unpredictable, adaptable, and resilient beyond measure. The next day, they continued deeper into the valley. Marcus noticed a cluster of bioluminescent plants that seemed to react to movement. He approached carefully, observing the patterns, and then used them to guide their path safely through a hidden swamp. Lyra's sensors detected subtle chemical changes in the plants, yet Marcus navigated them without hesitation. Hours later, they came across a river that had no visible bridge. Lyra analyzed the current. Too strong for swimming, too wide for a jump. Marcus observed the riverbed, noting a series of submerged rocks. With careful calculation and timing, he used the rocks to cross, each step measured yet flexible. Lyra followed, marveling at his instinctive problem-solving. As they climbed a hill overlooking the river, Lyra finally spoke. "Marcus, your species. You do things that no one else could. You take risks, but you succeed. How is that possible?" Marcus looked at her, his gaze steady and unwavering. "We don't always succeed, but we try. We learn from failure, we adapt, and we keep moving forward no matter what." Lyra understood. Humans were not invincible. They were not the strongest, fastest, or most intelligent in traditional measures, but their resilience, creativity, and determination made them formidable. Unlike other species who relied on predictable patterns, humans thrived in uncertainty. They converted danger into opportunity and chaos into progress. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of red and purple, Lyra felt a mixture of respect and fear. Marcus's calm demeanor, his instinctive problem-solving, and his unwavering determination revealed a species unlike any she had studied. Humans were survivors in ways that could not be predicted, calculated, or measured. That night, as they camped under the alien stars, Lyra reviewed her notes and sensor recordings. Every action Marcus had taken, every decision, every adaptation, painted a picture of human potential that was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. The galaxy had faced countless intelligent species, yet none had shown this combination of creativity, resilience, and moral judgment. Lyra realized that humans were not merely another species to study. They were a force of nature, capable of reshaping environments, surviving unimaginable dangers, and inspiring or terrifying any who encountered them. As Marcus slept beside the fire, Lyra stared into the alien night sky, thinking of the one question she had asked. What drives you? She understood now that his answer, simple, calm, and unyielding, held a truth the galaxy could not ignore. Humans survived not because they were the strongest, but because they refused to be constrained by fear, limitation, or expectation. Their unpredictability, their adaptability, and their determination made them a force that could change the balance of civilizations forever. And Lyra knew, with a certainty that chilled her, that this was only the beginning. The morning sun stretched across the alien valley, scattering light across the forests and rivers. Lyra watched Marcus as he moved through the clearing, carefully examining the unusual plants and sketching patterns in his datapad. Every step he took seemed purposeful yet fluid, an instinctive dance between observation and action. Lyra could not help but feel the weight of what she had learned in the days they had spent on this planet. Humans were unlike any species she had studied. They were unpredictable, resilient, and their minds operated in ways no algorithm or simulation could fully anticipate. Lyra approached him cautiously, her multiple eyes reflecting the soft glow of dawn. "Marcus," she said, her voice measured but heavy with curiosity, "we have traveled across the stars, encountered countless civilizations, and faced challenges no other species has survived. Yet, you continue forward, calmly, without hesitation. I need to understand fully. What drives you? Why do you continue when so much can go wrong?" Marcus paused and looked at her, his gaze steady and unwavering. "We survive," he said simply. "We endure. We adapt. And when we face the impossible, we do not stop trying. Every failure teaches us something. Every challenge makes us stronger. And we do it not just for ourselves, but for those who come after us." Lyra felt a shiver run through her limbs. She had asked this question before, and each time the answer seemed simple. But now, after witnessing his actions on this alien world, his ingenuity, his careful planning, his moral choices, his calmness in the face of danger, she understood the depth of his words. Humans were fragile in form, yet in spirit they were unbreakable. Their strength was not in numbers or weapons, but in their refusal to surrender to fear or limitation. The day stretched on as they explored deeper into the valley. Marcus led the way through dense forests, using landmarks and natural features to guide them safely. Lyra followed, her sensors constantly recording, her mind racing. Every choice he made, every path he selected, revealed a combination of intelligence, intuition, and creativity that defied expectation. Where other species might hesitate or falter, he moved with confidence, adapting to obstacles in real time. At one point, they came across a ravine with jagged cliffs on either side. The only way across was a series of narrow ledges, slick with moisture and unstable under pressure. Lyra's instincts screamed caution. Many alien species would have retreated or constructed elaborate tools to cross safely. Marcus, however, approached the edge, examining the ledges with careful precision. "We can cross," he said, his voice calm. "It will be tricky, but it is possible." Lyra studied him, hesitant. She could calculate probabilities, but she could not predict the creativity of a human mind. She followed him, carefully mimicking his movements. Step by step, they crossed the ravine, each movement precise yet adaptable. When Lyra finally reached the other side, she felt a rush of awe. Marcus had turned a perilous obstacle into a manageable challenge, relying on instinct, observation, and courage. Hours later, they reached a plateau overlooking a massive waterfall. The water thundered into a deep canyon below, mist rising in silver plumes. Lyra's sensors detected unusual energy readings in the rocks surrounding the falls. Marcus approached carefully, examining the patterns of minerals and observing the flow of water. "This could be valuable," he said thoughtfully. "Energy, resources, and a habitat for life. But we must respect it. Take only what we need." Lyra nodded, impressed not only by his technical understanding but by his moral judgment. Humans had survived on a fragile world, not by conquering but by balancing need and responsibility. Their strength was not only in adaptation but in ethics and foresight. As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the canyon, Lyra and Marcus set up camp. They shared a quiet meal, the hum of alien insects filling the air. Lyra studied him closely, reflecting on all she had observed. Every decision, every reaction, every creative solution he had devised was proof of a species capable of greatness, and terrifying in its unpredictability. "I've seen humans do extraordinary things," Lyra said quietly. "Your species survives when others would fail. You create solutions no one else can predict. But why? Why does your species endure against such odds?" Marcus looked at her, his eyes calm, unwavering. "Because we have to. Because we care. Because giving up is not an option. Every challenge teaches us. Every obstacle is a lesson. And every time we succeed, we grow stronger. That is what drives us." Lyra felt the full weight of his words. Humans were not just survivors. They were innovators, explorers, and pioneers. Their unpredictability was not chaos, but a form of intelligence that combined morality, creativity, and resilience. She had witnessed it firsthand, and she understood why the galaxy might fear or underestimate them. The night was quiet, the alien stars glittering overhead. Lyra could not sleep, her mind replaying every moment of their journey, the challenges, the solutions, the moral choices, and the calm courage Marcus had displayed. She realized that humans' strength lay not in their physical form, but in their ability to endure, adapt, and thrive in any circumstance. The next day, they ventured into a dense forest where the air was thick with unknown chemicals. Strange creatures darted between the trees, their movements unpredictable and fast. Lyra's instincts screamed caution, yet Marcus moved forward with measured confidence. He studied the creatures, observing their behavior, and adjusted their path to avoid conflict. When a creature leaped from a branch, Marcus reacted instinctively, guiding it away without harming it. "You humans," Lyra said softly, "you survive in ways no one else can. You take risks, yet you calculate them in ways we cannot predict. How do you do it?" Marcus smiled faintly. "We think differently. We learn from everything. We observe, adapt, and act. We fail, and we learn. We care, and that drives us forward. And we keep moving, no matter what." Lyra understood. Humans did not rely on brute force or overwhelming technology alone. They relied on their minds, their morals, and their determination. They thrived in chaos, uncertainty, and danger. That was their greatest weapon, and it was invisible to those who sought to measure strength only in conventional ways. As they explored further, they discovered a hidden valley filled with strange plants and flowing streams of energy. Lyra's sensors detected unusual patterns, hinting at a previously unknown ecosystem. Marcus examined the plants, taking careful notes, and suggested methods to study them without causing harm. Lyra marveled at his ability to combine curiosity, respect, and practical knowledge seamlessly. Days passed, and their exploration continued. Lyra began to feel a profound respect for the human beside her, tempered by a lingering fear. Humans were fragile, yes, but in spirit and mind, they were extraordinary. Marcus had shown her a species capable of surviving the impossible, thriving where others failed, and acting with intelligence, creativity, and morality in ways no alien could predict. One evening, as the twin moons of the system rose, casting silver light across the valley, Lyra finally voiced her thoughts. "Marcus, I have studied countless species, faced dangers, and observed civilizations rise and fall. Yet I have never encountered a species like yours. You survive, adapt, and overcome challenges no one else could. I do not understand how you do it, but I fear it, and I admire it." Marcus looked at her, calm and steady. "You don't have to understand fully. Just know that we endure. That is what humans do. That is what drives us." Lyra nodded, feeling the weight of his words settle deep in her mind. Humans were unpredictable, unyielding, and endlessly adaptable. They survived not because they were the strongest or fastest, but because they refused to be limited by fear or expectation. They acted in ways no one could predict, and in that unpredictability lay a power that could change the course of civilizations. As the Aurora prepared to leave orbit, Lyra and Marcus stood on the observation deck, watching the alien world shrink beneath them. The forests, rivers, and mountains had tested Marcus, yet he had thrived. Lyra understood that humans were not just another species to catalog or study. They were a force of nature, capable of reshaping worlds, surviving unimaginable dangers, and inspiring or terrifying those who encountered them. Lyra felt a mix of awe and fear as she reflected on her journey with Marcus. She had asked one question: "What drives you?" The answer, simple yet profound, had revealed a truth that no simulation, sensor, or algorithm could fully capture. Humans survived not by strength alone, but by resilience, creativity, morality, and the refusal to surrender. That was their greatest power, and it was terrifying to behold. As the ship sailed silently through the stars, Lyra made a silent vow. She would continue to study humans, to understand them, and to respect their abilities. But she would never underestimate them. Their potential was limitless, their unpredictability unmatched, and their determination unbreakable. The galaxy had seen powerful species, but none like humanity. And Lyra knew, with a certainty that chilled her, that this was only the beginning. Marcus stood beside her, gazing at the endless stars. He said nothing, but his calm presence spoke volumes. He represented his species, a species that endured against all odds, a species that transformed challenges into growth, a species whose unpredictability could not be measured but could not be ignored. Lyra understood fully now. Humans were not simply survivors, they were pioneers, innovators, and a force the galaxy had never truly faced. And as the Aurora traveled onward, leaving the alien planet behind, Lyra knew one truth above all. The human spirit was unstoppable, and their potential could change the galaxy forever. The stars stretched endlessly before them, a canvas of infinite possibilities. Lyra's mind, once certain of her species' superiority, now recognized a deeper reality. Humans were fragile in body, but their minds and spirits were extraordinary. They endured where others would fail, created solutions where none existed, and thrived in chaos where others crumbled. She turned to Marcus one last time before leaving the observation deck. "I see it now," she said quietly. "I understand what drives you. I understand what makes humans different, terrifying, yet remarkable." Marcus simply smiled, calm as ever. "We try, we endure, we adapt. That is all we can do." Lyra's chest tightened with both fear and admiration. The galaxy had witnessed countless species rise and fall, yet humans were something else entirely. They were unpredictable, resilient, and unyielding. And in their refusal to surrender, they possessed a power no one could measure and no one could control. As the Aurora moved forward into the depths of space, Lyra stared at the stars, thinking of the one question she had asked, and the answer that had forever changed the way she viewed life in the galaxy. Humans were survivors. Humans were innovators. Humans were unstoppable, and the galaxy would never be the same.